which are one is federal and one is state. The reason we brought our representatives up here with these signs is to show and demonstrate that we've heard from Majority Leader Schmidt and other legislators as well, that in order for the unions to stop being attacked by this administration and by government in general, they need to come to the table and do their fair share. Well, as you can see, going all the way back from 2008, when Mr. Swazi was still the county executive, straight through to we speak today, the CSEA alone has either conceded through negotiations or had their money taken away involuntarily, just the CSEA, to the tune of $135 million. I would say that alone is more than its fair share. Yet we sit here today waiting for a law to be passed which violates the very Bible, I would say, that our government and our democracy is based on. The United States Constitution, which took 116 days and was passed in 1787, has been amended 27 times over the years. And each amendment in itself took a long time and a lot of debate and a great amount of energy for both sides. And it affects all levels of government, federal, state, local government. No one is able to circumvent the laws of the land spelled out by the United States Constitution. Yet we sit here today and you are about to pass a law which violates the very foundation of our democracy as a country. The United States Constitution, which clearly says no state shall pass a law or legislation which supersedes a contract. It's called the contractual clause of the United States Constitution. I know Mr. Ciampoli will come up here and give you different reasons why he believes there's loopholes. There are no loopholes. In fact, our lawyers are standing by waiting for the moment this legislation, if it is passed, we will be in federal court on that point only. But I just think, I find it very, very insulting. You know, it's one thing when an individual or a group of people try to enact something, a policy, which violates a law. That goes to court, eventually finds its way to Supreme Court. It's either found in violation of the Constitution or not. But instead, what we're going to find ourselves in is the rare, I don't even know if this has ever been done in this country. We're going to find ourselves with a county that has on its books a law, an actual law, that we are to follow as citizens of this county, which violates the Constitution of the United States. Never been heard of before. Not in my life anyway. I'm looking for research to find where other legislative bodies have passed laws which violate our Constitution. And on top of that being very different in New York State, we have what's known as the New York State Taylor Law. And the Taylor Law clearly says that government, employers must negotiate changes in contracts, and they cannot unilaterally change the contents of a contract. That's a violation of the New York State Taylor Law. And the New York State Taylor Law protects both residents and workers. We cannot strike, and we abide by that rule. Yet we have the Triborough Agreement, which allows us to maintain what we have negotiated until a new contract is in place. Those are some of the major provisions of the Taylor Law. But certainly passing a law which reads a resolution authorizing the county executive to take any and all actions he deems necessary to fill a $40 million budget gap, and I think I hit that pretty much right on the head, verbatim, okay, is in itself illegal. And I believe as lawmakers, you cannot be lawbreakers, you must be lawmakers. And if in fact this body does shamefully pass this law which violates our Constitution, I believe those lawmakers that vote in favor of this should be sanctified. They should be held accountable for their actions. I believe that they should be, just like a citizen of this country would be when we violate laws. It's your responsibility to follow the law of the land. And as these signs clearly show, CSEA along with our brother and sister unions in the county, have given hundreds of millions of dollars back to the county. It is, some of it was given and conceded, some of it was taken. But we have done more than our fair share. And I warn everybody, even those residents out there that did take the position the unions need to pay more. I warn you all, with respect, please pay attention to this law. This is a dangerous action being taken today. This can go much further than just hitting the unions. This can hit every resident in Nassau County. Remember the words. Take any and all actions he deems necessary. This is the United States of America. We are the biggest democracy and the best and greatest country on the planet. And we stand here in Nassau County ready, willing, and able to violate our own Constitution because of politics. And I'm going to tell you, I'm not blaming one party here. I think both parties are using politics to make for bad government. And I'm going to tell you right now, at the end of the day, the residents are smarter and more educated than you think they are, as the unions are. And I hope everyone pays attention to these actions because they are so insulting, not only to our union and your county workers, but to every resident of this county. And I hope that you take that seriously before you gavel that law in. Thank you.
Mr. Larry, you and I'm sure several legislators don't want to respond to you, but first, before I respond to you, I have to just put on the record that an amendment to this legislation was proposed today by the county executive, but unfortunately, as the county attorney, you should know, amendments have to be filed with the court for 7 days before they can be acted upon. So we can't act on this today, but we have it filed and circulated, but it adds a provision. I don't know if this changes your feeling or not. It says that the provisions of provisions. I don't want to read the legal terminology. The provisions of the clauses 1, 3, 4, and 5 shall not be applicable to any public employees union that entered into a concession agreement with Nassau County on or before July 1st, 2012. However, applicability is subject to each concession agreement having attained all necessary approvals. Surely, now that's just the amendment the county executive wants. It'll come to the legislature at the next meeting. We can revisit this law if it's passed today and amended if it's the will of the body to do that. But to your point, surely you know that the United States Constitution, in order to be amended, each amendment has to be approved by the states, and the states have to ratify, which is why it takes so long. Probably so. This is not that. This is nowhere near that. This is because of, as you probably read in the paper when this was first proposed, my reception to it and many of the other legislators on my side, their reception to it was lukewarm, to say the least. But after seeing the extent of the financial difficulties and the necessity to save $40 million for all the reasons that were beaten into a dead horse today, with the amount of bonding going down and the judgments being potentially outdated come in. I skipped over the fact that this allows him to take whatever actions he deems necessary to achieve $40 million in savings. And the authority that was granted to him sunsets once the legislative independent budget office says that they have saved $40 million. Whether that savings comes about as a result of concession agreements or it comes about as a result of actions that he takes, $40 million in the authorization ceases. Authorization has been granted in this way to executives at every level of government. Surely you're old enough like I am to remember, although it did not end well, the Gulf of Tonkin resolution, where the Congress of the United States ceded to the President the authority to take the steps necessary to protect the country. We're ceding to the county executive limited authority to take the steps necessary to protect the county. The county needs to be protected from these judgments. Now, the process of the legislature is, if the county executive was to recommend that a department be merged or a department be shuttered, as the legislation says, he would have to file down legislation to the clerk. He would have to go to the clerk's office for 17 days. It would then have to be calendared and go through committee, and then have to call a meeting of the legislature, hold the hearing, and then after the hearing, we could have a vote. The need is now. It's not 30 days from now, it's not 45 days from now, when we can finish our process. So we built into this that he has to come back to us and report to us on what's been done. There has to be close monitoring of what's been done. And the authorization, as I said, expires with the savings of $40 million. And I do not believe for 1 minute that this gives him the authorization to invade New Jersey. It doesn't give him the unlimited power to do anything that he wants to do. It gives him the power to take the steps necessary, obviously within the confines of state and federal law, to take whatever steps are necessary to save $40 million. I do not understand the visceral reaction here if what you say to us is true. If this law is not going to stand scrutiny, well, knock it out. I don't see robes on you, with all due respect. I'm not a lawyer. I don't have the answer to these questions. I have a request here from the county executive to receive this authority to take the actions that he has to take. Period. And if the legislature sees fit to grant that, and you think it's illegal, or the CSEA thinks it's illegal, with all due respect, take it to court. Let the judges decide. And I know legislative court.
Good afternoon. Thank you for coming down and bringing this to our attention. And I do have a concern as well. Maybe we share the same concern. It was my understanding originally when I first heard about some of the changes that the county executive wanted to do, that this would allow him to possibly furlough people like a certain number of days. Basically, almost like as if when we had passed it years ago under Tom Swazi, it was also the same permission. It has come to my intention that this is a little bit more than, maybe a lot more, than just a mere furlough of certain employees. So I had requested that somebody from the administration who was well-versed in labor law to be here, so I'm hoping that person can get up and explain to me what exactly this legislation is going to allow the county executive to do in regard to the labor.
You know, Legislative Ford, we are angry at all parties because of this action. But from being the county executive, you almost can understand when an executive, be it the president, the governor, the mayor, the county executive, he will test his abilities and strengths to a certain point. That's why we have 3 branches of government. This is the checks and balances of that. It's not uncommon for an executive in any one of those positions to try to push the envelope, so to speak, to see how far they can go. And that's, you know, part of government that we've accepted. However, this is where the buck stops. Actually, in this case, the buck will stop in either federal or Supreme Court, unfortunately. And I disagree with Mr. Schmidt because under those decisions that you spoke of earlier, there was different circumstances where other remedies, all remedies were exhausted. And it was decided under almost a police state where the emergency was so dire that there was no time for the regular process. And in those rare instances over the last 100 years, I think there's been 6, is about how many instances where that kind of authority has been allowed. But you have not exhausted every remedy. I'm sorry?
You have internet access.
Yes, I do.
But Jerry, let me ask you something, because I know that part of this thing is with county contracts, and I know this is a very tough day for all of us, and we are, making some, votes that won't necessarily sit well, and we're going to have to count on the county executive, who had been a legislator, to take a look at before he makes some cuts and does some things. I know with the red light camera money and stuff like that now goes back into the general fund. Then he makes every effort to take a look at our youth agencies and a lot of the agencies that we have to make sure that we don't totally annihilate each and every single one of them. But for me, my concern would be, based on your reading of this, and I have a concern as to whether or not this is something that, given him any power, that would you consider that maybe he would be able to go in and change any part of your contract?
Well, I believe that's what he's doing. I think if you furlough full-time employees that we, and this case was proven in state court a year and a half ago, maybe a little longer, under Governor Patterson, when he announced that he was going to furlough state workers. The CSEA and the PEF, Public Employees Federation, immediately went to Supreme Court, and in fact, they were successful in getting an injunction against that action, because in our contracts, part-timers, per diem workers, people that are paid by the hour, by the day, the rules are slightly different for them. Not slightly, they're very different for them. But 90% of our workforce, or at least 85% of our workforce, are full-time, annually salarized employees. Therefore, there is no remedy or there is no road to cut their pay unless they get in trouble in a discipline. There is no other way for anyone to say, you can close the county 3 days a week, quite frankly, but you still have to pay the full-time employees their annual salary unless, of course, they are disciplined, violate either their contract or violate the rules and policies of Nassau County, which we understand that. But there is no other remedy as far as we're concerned that we can see. The Taylor law protects us from that, and quite frankly, the law itself that I speak of, we believe is protected by the Constitution.
When you say like the annual salary, I mean, I know that a lot of times with these workers, you're not considered annual workers like you are, like, you know, you get paid weekly or whatever it is. So that if you had to give up a day, like every other week, that you...
Has been negotiated.
Yeah.
And under normal circumstances, I'm not saying it would be an easy one. Those are tough negotiations. You know, we would be probably willing to sit down and at least talk about these things, but read the signs. My members are in a permanent 4-year, 5-year wage freeze after giving up over $50 million on their own voluntarily. And they are hurting. We have members stuck in their starting salary at $19,000, $21,000. They're going to be stuck there till 2015. And now we're going to tell them, and by the way, we're going to only pay you 4/5 of a week. That part violates the Taylor law. Changing the contract violates the U.S. Constitution. It wasn't negotiated, and on top of that, the Constitution protects the right of, it's called the contractual clause. I'm sure Mr. Ciampoli will speak to it, or whoever he has here to represent their side. But in our view, it's clearly a violation, and quite frankly, it worked in New York State, and that judge immediately put a restraining order in that afternoon, as soon as Governor Patterson set a date that he was going to furlough.
Is that the person from the administration here?
Well, wait a second, are you finished?
I'm done.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.